Greetings, hero lovers. Welcome back once again to the 2020 Rewind. We're taking a look at episode 19. This is the last two characters that I have to showcase for you. And this guy, number 19, Admiral Nautilus, is a level 50 Corruptor that I just finished putting together, incarnating, getting them all slotted up. He's Stormblast, Marine Affinity, Leviathan Mastery, and those two first sets there are new to the Homecoming servers, so I don't have a lot of experience with them. So this little rewind video is gonna be informative for me as well as you, I think, because I want to get into how the heck do you use these powers, and it's gonna kind of be in sort of a real-time scenario. I've only messed around with this guy on a few missions at this point, just a little bit of solo, a little bit of teaming as I was kind of getting those last little bit of vet levels together. So I'm not super knowledgeable with how these sets are going to work. So we'll kind of talk about that as we go through there. I know one of my initial concerns, having done some playing with this guy, is the lack or the choice of some sort of useful opener. Especially on a squishier, character like Corruptors, what do you start with? There's not a big old control or a bunch of defenses or whatever that kind of can keep that alpha off you. And in my previous runs with Corruptors back, a year ago when I was doing the 50-50 showcase, these were always my sketchiest, builds, my sketchiest characters. I had the most, I think, deaths with the Corruptor class, more than defenders or controllers or whatever. So I'm not sure exactly why that is. I suspect it's they have, buffs, but it's not as good as defender buffs. They have blasts, but blasts are not going to necessarily save your bacon unless you have massive damage levels, kind of, like blasters would kind of get away with it. They don't have, controls that much like you'd find in a controller or dominator or something. You don't really have any pets to help you too well, so it's kind of a riskier AT, I think. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at choices and what I went with on this particular build. Now, I'm not going to go into super duper detail on this because I've already done the super duper detailed. I did a little 3 video series known as the Learn to Play CoH and how to use Mids Reborn, which is the program you see me mousing over right now, this hero builder. So I already did that, and I'll put links to those videos in the description below. So what I want to focus on is just kind of any insights I've had so far and any little changes I've made, and just sort of general concepts. So the basic idea here, of course, is I've chosen everything, and part of that is because I don't know what all these powers do, so I couldn't sit here and tell you, oh yeah, that's skippable for sure. The other thing is having looked at the numbers on these powers with City of Data and mids, they all seem pretty good. They all have pretty good uses. So I don't see much in the way of throwaway powers. There's a couple of ones that if I were just soloing, I probably wouldn't take. Or if I was teaming only, I, would keep, etc., etc. So, kind of look at that a little bit. But right now, I don't know much about it. Stormblast, the general idea here as far as theme goes from what the powers do. A lot of them have debuffing as far as movement, like a minus fly. They've got some knockdown. They've got some more knockdown. You've got minus speed, minus recharge. You got a little bit of endurance training, but not much. So really, it's mostly trying to keep things clustered and just raining death down on them with these little lightning strikes. So it's kind of like, ice or like, rain of fire from Fire Blast, where you're just dropping things down, on people. And, you want to make sure that they stay put so that you can, crush them wherever they may be. So that's the basic idea with Storm. It also has this mechanic where Storm Cell it's almost like a mobile buildup. So you put this location patch AoE and it hovers in that area, and then your other storm powers can get magnified by its presence. So you can, I think it shoots extra lightning bolts out. You know, blows people down, and so it kind of makes it tricky to slot correctly. I think. Like I've got some knockdown and little Frankenstein with detonation, so that you know my accuracy's pretty good on it. My damage is okay on it. Endurance, knockback. And mostly, you know, the knockback's gonna give me some good set bonuses for cheap. Like I've got knockback protection with the 4 slotting on it. Gave me some more smash lethal resistance because that was sort of my big survival tactic here is I'm gonna be getting into just trying to keep myself going by having I have some decent you know, over overall defenses, but that's because of incarnates, which I'll talk about. If I shut the incarnates off, that's giving me the defenses. You can see that those numbers pretty much suck. So I'm really relying upon, you know, smash lethal cold resistance, and I can get that pretty much capped, you know, when I click toroidal bubble and stuff and whatnot. So I don't have a ton of survivability outside of sort of the big ones, so smash lethal. So some of these set choices are going to help with that, like you know, kinetic crash here. Then you go ahead and take a look at what Storm is going to, you know, try to do, or what I'm going to try to do with it is keep things concentrated around Storm Cell. Take advantage of this magnification effect that Storm Cell does. It activates and triggers a lot of these special things that you'll see some of these powers have. You know, Cloudburst has special. If I kind of pull this up, I'm not sure it's going to show here in the. Yeah, it doesn't really. I don't think it shows necessarily in all these, but simply put, a lot of these blast powers have a little special effect that can get amplified or triggered by Storm Cell. So the blast set, I think, in general, really relies upon Storm Cell, and it has a decent duration. I think it lasts. Let's see if I can pull this up here. How long does this thing last? Just give me some numbers. Yes, I'm not 100% sure what the duration is on it, but the storm cell sits around, like I said, kind of floats around, and stuff within it can take extra damage. So I found that this guy can do some decent damage, and some. It's very chaotic, you know. This is kind of brain freewheeling here. I don't want to get too much in tactics or strategy, but what I definitely have seen so far is that you're really trying to manage chaos here. So it's a lot like Storm Master or not, whatever it is, Storm Control or whatever the buff set, where you kind of that chaos and you're trying to focus your chaos and you're fighting yourself and stuff's flying around, especially if you throw a tornado out there. Stormblast is like that, except it's like your primary blasting set. So I can only imagine the craziness of a storm, a defender or a corruptor would be kind of interesting. But things are flying, things are getting knocked around, knocked down. It's pretty chaotic and crazy. So trying to manage that is a challenge. So that's one thing you'll see. And then Marine Affinity is another interesting set because it's sort of, I'm not really sure it knows what it is. It doesn't like focus on any one thing. Uh, you've got some debuff going on here, like Shoal Rush minus defense minus speed. You got then a heal, but the heal's also a debuff, a damage debuff. Toroidal Bubble is a buff. Whitecap is a self-teleport damage with some debuff. Tide Pool is a debuff and a buff. Brine is a debuff. Shifting Tides is a buff, but it's a toggle. Barrier Reef is a pet, and that gives you like buffing. And then Power of the Depths is a buff. So you've got this mix of buff debuff, which you know a lot of sets do, but you know you've got like I said, sort of a toggle. Then you've got a floating pet. Then you've got patches. Then you've got cones. So it's like one of everything has been thrown into the set, and it makes it tricky to use, I think, because I've found myself forgetting what some of these things do. Where, you know, some sets you just click, click, click and go. Other ones, you know, you got patch, patch, patch and go. Or you got like placeable, you know, like traps or something like that. This has kind of got, you know, hodgepodge of stuff. So between these two, Storm Blast, where you got some placeables, you got some cones, you got some direct, range attacks, and then Marine with similar mishmashing, it's a tough, thing to put together. Kind of in hindsight, I'm almost like, man, I don't know if I should have messed with those two sets at the same time. They kind of sound like they should go together thematically, but in practice, I'm finding it a challenge. So that's something I think you might see here. And then Leviathan Mastery, the idea behind this was that I would use it, especially School of Sharks, to use the Immobilize to keep everything in one position so that then I can kind of concentrate the Storm on it and the Marine Affinity on the targets. But what I've kind of found myself is forgetting to use this, or it's not a great opener. This is pretty much going to get you killed if this is what you open with all the time. It's similar if like if I were playing a controller or dominator, I would not open with a AOE immobilized. You're just asking to get murdered. So that's what makes this tricky. And then you really don't have anything debuffing that's gonna stop you from getting hit. Your main debuffery, there's some minus speed, some minus recharge, so you won't get hit as often. But the main thing that's going to try to save you is there's some minus damage in some of your powers, which is sort of alien in itself. I know that there are powers out there that do minus damage, but the way I'm conceiving of this build is like that was my point. That was my strategy. I was going to be this minus damager. So that's kind of I find that really, I don't want to say scary, but you're playing the thing like, okay, I need to go and attack these guys, aggroing them, knowing I'm going to get a hit, and hoping that the minus damage I've laid on them is enough to keep me from taking too much damage. So that's kind of the the scary part of that. Uh, and you really rely upon something like Clarion so that you don't get mezzed. So that's an interesting pairing here. But just trying to figure out what this thing does. I have a couple ideas of maybe some changes I would make. I'm not sure Weaken Resolve is doing me much favors with this build. I think I got enough already debuffs, so I'm almost thinking maybe I ditch the Force of Will. I like the Mighty Leap, but I don't know if I'm using it enough at this point. Maybe instead I do Fighting Pool here. Boxing and tough, that would boost up my resistances more. Maybe I go leadership, grab maneuvers and tactics or something. Could go with that. That's an option. Then the other thing that I kind of leaned into here is, aside from sort of this minus damage, high risk kind of build, is pets. I've got a decent number of them. You got Barrier Reef, which is like the force field generator of Marine. So it has some defense, but it's mostly like an absorb power. I don't know if my slotting on this is good. I did use it sort of as a little mule here. I've got, shield wall, the resistance to all sitting in there. I did put the Panacea, the plus hit points endurance, which does work. Okay, this does proc multiple times as the barrier reef is floating around, so that's good. But I'm really not sliding it for what it kind of can do, which is defense and healing. So I'm not sure if I should have more defense in here, if I should lean more into the absorb healing side of things. So I can see myself maybe re-slotting this a little bit. Same thing with the Storm Cell, because Storm Cell itself doesn't do damage as is. It only starts doing damage when your other storm powers are activated within the Storm Cell. So I've got 5, slots sunk into this. I don't know that it's worth it. I might be able to get away with just like 2 of them or something like that and move some of these slots somewhere else. So these are some things I want to kind of watch out for as I'm testing and playing this build, running some solos and some team stuff. What can I get rid of? What can I keep? But anyway, I've got the Barrier Reef. I've got the Summoned Coralax from the Leviathan set, and then you've got the Incarnates. I've gone ahead and taken the Ruleroo to give me a couple more pets. I'll kind of make this a little more, aquatic kind of idea. Scoot this down. So I've got those guys. And then I went ahead and I got the support and the Vigor Core are going to help with my endurance issues. Plus, this gives me some defense, some accuracy, because my accuracy and some of my powers is pretty low. Void is leaning into that minus damage. Paralytic, minus defense, minus damage. So it's getting more minus damage. Clarion is pretty much in, you have to take it if you're playing some squishy, defender, corruptor, whatever. If you don't have your own mez protection, this is the only way you're going to get it is outside of break freeze. So that's pretty much mandatory, but I don't mind it because it's going to give me boost specials, which is going to boost most of my debuffing and the controls that I have. So that's something else that, I'm going to be trying to take advantage of. And then the last thing I'll mention is that, and I got to remember to do this more, I found myself not doing it, is I'm actually slotted pretty well for controls, or at least proccable control. I've got devastation chance to hold in 3 powers, I think, gust, direct strike, and cloudburst. And I also have Spirit Shark Jaws, which is another hold. So I have 4 ways to hold. Oh, make it 5 because School of Sharks, I put the Gravitational Anchor in there, the chance to hold. So I can hold, but I don't know, maybe I just haven't found it reliable, or I just haven't focused on it enough in a group. So maybe against these tougher targets when I'm soloing like a boss, if I can hold like the Galaxy Council from Resing, or the what is it, the boss ones that turn into werewolves, and stop them. I'll test that out, see what happens. But I think the biggest problem I've seen, or concern at this point, is a lack of a reliable opening move that's not going to get me killed. I don't have like a toggle debuff I can just kind of drop, in like Darkest Night or something like that. The patches I have are more buff patches, or buff slash debuff, than straight debuff. And the stuff that does the minus damage, like my Soothing Wave has the minus damage. What is it? Tide Pool has minus damage. This means I have to stand right out in the open and Soothing Wave blast at a group of enemies, so that's dangerous. And I don't even know, I didn't even think about this, but does the Soothing Wave, the debuff, have a to hit check? Because I didn't slot this for accuracy, and it doesn't take accuracy, so I'm assuming it's just debuffing damage. But again, you have to stand out in the open and fire this. I don't have any stealth. That's another thing I was thinking I might need to put into this build, is a stealth proc, maybe in sprint or something. Because if otherwise I got to charge in there in Soothing Wave to throw a debuff on you, and then I'm going to take a big blast. Tide Pool, I can drop that around a corner for the minus damage, minus speed, and whatever. But again, now I've aggroed, and as soon as I then poke my head around the wall, boom, I'm going to get shot. So those are kind of my 2 main minus damages. My third main minus damage is if I go with my Void Radial. I can charge in there and PBAOE nuke to get the old minus damage. That's always an option. But again, now I'm fully exposed. So as a squishy, without any sort of, solid either control or, Darkest Night style, radiation infection style debuff toggle, this is pretty much hoping that that minus damage is doing enough, combined with your damage resistance that you got over here. So that'll be what's interesting to keep your eye out for as I go ahead and run some of these missions. All right, that's all I'm going to blab about for this build right here. If you want to see all the dirty details about why I picked what I did, go check out my Learn to Play little mini series there. Specifically the episode 2 of that, when I talk about all the enhancements and the sets that I chose for that thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the solo missions fired up. And I think I'm going to start probably just with +1s with this guy. I got to just get a feel for him before I commit fully. So I might just do +1s, then +2s. And if that goes well, do the +3s like I normally do. And we'll see what that does. So I might make this solo a three-parter instead of just 2. All right, we'll check you out in those videos and have yourselves a good one later.